Today I'm going to run you through some essential tools you should take with you on your bike, whether you're bike packing for multiple days or multiple months. I'm going to start out with some minimalistic tools, something that I would take with me whether I was commuting or just going for one day. It's the lightest possible version of tools I could imagine bringing with me. And then I'm going to move up into something more remote or multi-week, and then all the way into my expedition kit that I would take with me if I was going for months and months at a time. Each one has a different need and a different purpose based on whether there's a lot of services on your route that you're choosing to do, whether it's months and months at a time, whether you're riding with another person, and a lot of factors. So you can take or leave some of these things based on what you think you're going to encounter on your next trip. But the very basic start out kit is something I would not leave the house without. In my most recent video, I did a video about repair scenarios that you're likely to encounter. And I think that's a really common question that I hear is, what should I be prepared to fix on my bike? So I go into a few scenarios that I've experienced the most frequent and things that I'm ready to take care of and tackle while I'm out bike touring and bike packing. And this is the toolkit right here that I use to bail myself out from just about any situation. And worst case scenario, you're going to end up hitchhiking or calling for help and getting to a bike shop so the professionals can sort you out. But with what's in front of me, you can get a lot done with a little bit of creativity and some know-how. So understanding what each one of these tools does and how they suit your bike or work for you is really important. So go check out that video if you're curious about some of the things you're likely to encounter while you're out on the trail. And let's get into my most minimalistic setup, and then I'm going to slowly add into that as the trips get longer and longer and more remote. I don't exactly have everything that I need in front of me right now because I'm house sitting in Portland and I flew here from Detroit in preparation to do the Oregon Timber Trail, which is extremely remote, very rugged, very little services, and almost no cell phone service for most of the trail. So I'm going to really outfit myself to make sure I can limp my bike to the next bike mechanic or to the next cell phone service spot where I can call for help and hopefully get my bike repaired. So let's get into what I keep in my toolkit on my bike for just about any adventure. Hey Luna. This is Luna. I'm dog sitting. She's very sweet, but she hates the mailman. She hates him. Let's get into the most minimalistic setup for bike packing. And that is going to be anything that I take with me, whether I'm commuting or going for a single night. This is the basis of my entire repair scenario. And the most important part of that is a multi-tool. This is the Junior multi-tool, and it has a lot of fun things on here. It has a Phillips screwdriver, it has a flathead screwdriver, it has all the T-nuts, Allen wrenches, it has a chain breaker, a valve core removal tool, and a spoke tool on it. This thing has everything you might need to bail yourself out. The next most important thing is flat repair. So I have a tube and I have a pump, and the pump has a little bit of duct tape wrapped around it just in case things get a little bit weird. You're going to need some tire levers to remove your tire in case of a flat, and a patch kit. This has patches for tubes, some glue, some sandpaper, and it has plugs for my tubeless setup. I will not leave the house without those things no matter what. So adding on to that very minimalistic setup, I'm going to add in a few things for trips that are longer than a couple of days that I'm likely to be away from services for a bit longer. This gives me a lot more options on how to bail myself out if something goes catastrophically wrong. And the first and foremost important thing is to carry one of these, which is a gel. This is a sports gel. Runners usually eat these. There's a bunch of simple carbohydrates in here, some caffeine, and some sodium. This could bail yourself out if you start to bonk and you're having a really hard time.
I ate a gel. This is not what I wanted to be doing right now.
This is not for repairing the bike as much as it's for repairing myself. And if I'm having a horrible day, I'll eat one of these gels and it will take me out of the grave. Just make sure you have it with some water. Moving on to that is wheel repair, which is a really common issue a lot of people run into. So I'm going to carry 2 extra spokes and some nipples in case I break a spoke on the road. I bring 2 kinds because there's 2 different sizes that go on your bike, and you can have a local mechanic help you size those spokes for your ride. Then on top of that, if I blow a bead on my tubeless setup, I have a little valve and a CO2 cartridge so I can reset the bead on the side of the trail. And if I lost the bead, I'm probably going to need a boot for the tire to repair a major gash in the side of the tire. a little bit of sealant so I can seal everything up again, and maybe even a valve core. Those are the tire repair things that I'm going to add onto this for catastrophic failure. I also am going to carry a little bit of electrical tape. I'm going to carry some zip ties as well for securing broken parts of a rack. I'm going to bring a bunch of master links. And I also bring a bit of chain lube and a towel with me so I can clean and lubricate my drivetrain. Adding on to that, for a more remote bikepacking experience, situations where you might be 200 to 300 miles from your closest actual bike shop, you're going to bring a little bit extra. Some things that are a bit harder to find at your local hardware store. Places where you know you're far from help and cell phone service. One of the first things I'll bring with me is a full tubeless valve. In case there's massive failure on my tubeless setup, I can just swap that whole valve out. I can add new sealant, I can stitch up the sidewall of the tire, I can reset the bead, and I can completely reset my tubeless experience on the side of the road. Another important thing might be a few extra chain links for your size chain. If you do have catastrophic chain failure, there's not a lot of weight. You can just lengthen that chain up and make it work properly again. Another thing is, if it's applicable to your bike, a derailleur hanger. It's really easy to break those off on a rock or during a crash, and they're very, very hard to find, but they're inexpensive and they're small. So tossing a new derailleur hanger in your bag could make or break the entire trip. I'll also bring with me a needle and thread. So I have a rounded needle like this that I keep folded over in the cardboard to protect it from stabbing through into the rest of my kit. And I'll wrap some regular thread around that. That way I can stitch up a torn bike bag or a torn sidewall in my tire. And then just take a look through your bike and see what kind of assorted bolts you might need that could potentially vibrate out. Some ones to keep in mind are for the rack and rack support system, maybe some for the shifting mechanism to hold it onto your bike, or the brake bolts. Just having a few extra things that are maybe hard to find but lightweight and small based on your bike. Another thing that I'll like to carry with me is a Leatherman, but most importantly the needle nose pliers aspect of it. I like to carry a Leatherman because it has a file on it and a leather punch and multiple knives and a little tiny saw and just things that I could use to get a little bit more creative. And the final addition to this kit in front of me are some things that I would bring if I was going on an expedition length trip. Months and months at a time, multiple countries, numerous scenarios, and if you go for a year or more, virtually everything on your bike is going to break and be completely replaced by the end of the trip. So having just a little bit extra stuff to bail you out in time of need is really nice. So I will bring an extra brake cable and an extra shift cable in case I break one of those, and they can be hard to find. I'll bring a simplified brake bleed kit if I have hydraulic brakes. That way I can bleed my own brakes or top off the fluid myself. I will bring lots and lots of tape. So much tape, like a weird amount of tape. That way I can really correct a mishap on the side of the road and just start duct tape and dreams holding the bike together. And if that's not working, I'm going to bring a hose clamp with me so I can clamp whatever's falling off the bike back onto the bike. I'm going to bring an extra set of brake pads because those can also be hard to find and I might have to order them in. So I'm going to be able to swap my own brakes, update that without going to a shop, and I can order the brake pads ahead further down the trail. And I'll bring a small tub of grease so I can repack bearings on my pedals or my bottom bracket or my hub or my headset if there's a catastrophic failure there as well. So that's everything I would bring for a very, very minimal trip all the way up to an expedition length trip. And I mix and match those things based on my needs. My upcoming trip of the Oregon Timber Trail, I'm bringing a little bit more than normal based on how remote that trail is. But it's important that you think about your you-isms, the things that are unique to you and your bike when you're out on the trail. A couple things that come to mind are dynamo hubs. Do you have a dynamo hub? In which case you might want to bring a few extra wire-related things to keep that system working properly. Maybe you have clipless pedals. Maybe you have a special type of bottom bracket where you're going to need a special tool to remove that and replace it. Maybe a cassette tool. Maybe a spoke tool for your size spokes. The best thing you can do is go down to your local bike shop and ask them, Are there any unique or hard to find parts about this bike that I might want to pick up? A derailleur hanger is one of those things that can be very hard to find, but very, very essential for the likelihood of your bike continuing to work. So riding your bike, breaking things, and fixing them yourself is the best teacher. Start over prepared and then slowly chip away at what you're bringing with you out on the trail. But most importantly, don't let these things stop you from getting out there and getting after it. Having a little bit extra food, a little bit extra know-how, and a really good understanding of the route and where your help can actually be is more important than anything else. I've linked all these things down in the description below, and I made a detailed list of anything that you might need for your next trip. Thanks for tuning in. Till next time.